In the last video, we saw the story of Jung Hee, a talented chef who works at a bar, but dreams of going to Paris to make it big. On the other side of the story was Ji-woo, the spoilt son of a rich family who likes to live in luxury. Jung Hee works hard to save money for her Paris trip, and a large chunk of that money comes from her mother's savings she stole. Meanwhile, Ji-woo comes to Korea after his billionaire grandfather's death to get his share in his will. He deals with PTSD from the death of his childhood best friend, and that makes him severely uncomfortable in darkness. Certain circumstances bring Jung Hee and Ji-woo into contact with each other over and over again. One of those circumstances is that Jung Hee's best friend, roommate, and secret admirer, Kim Yong, works under Ji-woo's elder brother. And another one is that Ji-woo's mom is the pastor in Jung Hee's local church. Both of them face their fair share of misfortunes, as Jung Hee gets scammed of all her money by a fake travel agent, and Ji-woo's grandfather doesn't leave him a single penny. However, the old man has left him a bookstore in debt, and Ji-woo reluctantly decides to operate it to get some money. He calls Jung Hee to clean it because she owes him money for breaking his limited edition watch. He gives her mixed signals, saying that he likes her one moment and then treating her as a servant the next moment. Jung Hee gets even more jealous and insecure when she sees Ye-ji, Ji-woo's childhood friend, who has a very obvious crush on him. Ji-woo has already friend-zoned her, but she doesn't give up and keeps clinging to him. One day, Ji-woo asks his elder brother Ji-hyuk to fund his upcoming business, and he agrees to do that only if he can prove his worth as a bartender in the cocktail party he's hosting. On the other hand, Jung Hee has overcome from the depression of losing all her money and started working hard to lead a fresh life. She returns home after working odd jobs all night and cheerfully bids Kim Jong best of luck for his job with a flying kiss. When Kim Yong arrives at his office, he dives straight into organizing the cocktail party his office is hosting for the public. The pressure to prove himself capable is fueling him, and the way the event is coming together is applause-worthy. Meanwhile, Jung Hee is returning from her waitressing job, already exhausted when a lady approaches. The woman has taken into account how hard Jung Hee has been working in the past few days, and advises her to take rest before she gets completely burnt out, telling her to prioritize her health as that is more important. Despite all the words of caution, Jung Hee reassures the woman that she can handle the workload, and she is very determined to prove it. The dreams of going to Paris kept her going forward. Once the lady goes back on her way, Kim Yong texts Jung Hee and invites her to the cocktail party in his office so that she can enjoy a good meal. Jung Hee is ecstatic to hear this. However, she sets eyes on a beggar and feels sympathetic after she remembers Rockstar and his poor condition. Jung Hee finally arrives at Kim Yong's office party, but what she did not know or expect, Ji-woo is also bartending at that very same party. All the ladies at the party flock to his side, impressed to see him bartending and trying to gain his attention. This sight completely baffles Ji-woo's brother, Ji-hyuk, who is surprised by the amount of attention his brother is getting. Ye-ji notices this as well and comes to get a photo with Ji-woo pretending to help him out. At that exact very moment, Jung Hee enters into Ji-woo's line of sight, and curiosity ends up getting the better of him, so he decides to give her a call. However, Jung Hee picks up the call assuming it's Kim Yong because who else could be calling her at this event? She barely inquires about Kim Yong's whereabouts before she realizes it's Ji-woo's call, who annoyingly asks her why she's always looking for Kim Yong when he's not her boyfriend. Irritated by the questioning, Jung Hee cuts his call only to turn around and bump into Ji-woo. He doesn't even bother greeting her, but instead decides to mock her for running into him, recalling the multiple incidents that have happened to him every time he bumped into her. To name a few, he ran into his mafia ex-girlfriend and even ended up breaking his watch. Jung Hee makes a very smart retort, telling him to pretend as if he doesn't know her at all if that is the case. After all, he was the one who came to seek her out at this event. However, Ji-woo always has a comeback to everything and lets her know that he cannot do that as he's bartending at this party and has to take care of customers, so he has no other choice. Jung Hee gets sick and tired of this back and forth bickering and leaves, finally spotting Kim Yong. She greets him with a surprise, which is the foreign singer named Rockstar, who she also brought along to the party. Kim Yong is baffled to see him, but Jung Hee quietly lets him know that Rockstar is homeless and could use the free food at the party. Wanting to keep Jung Hee happy and feeling bad for the beggar, Kim Yong assures her that it is completely alright to bring him along, and also guides them both to where the food is. Rockstar takes a few minutes to thank Kim Yong before delving straight into eating as if he has never had a meal before. His enthusiasm attracts attention, and the media flock to Jung Hee, looking for general comments about the food and drinks. However, traumatized by her dad's drinking, Jung Hee insults the drinks and shares her very discouraging view on drinking. She makes remarks about how bad it is for everyone's health, but not a single person seems to agree with her. Ji-woo, being as fond of drinking as he is, praises the drinks, and Ye-ji chimes in to give him support, putting on a cute little act. Everyone joins in to give their supporting comments about the drinks prepared. Later, Ji-woo notices Kim Yong bringing food to Jung Hee's table and wonders about the nature of their relationship. Unbeknownst to him, Jung Hee also takes note of how Ye-ji is stuck at Ji-woo's hip and takes a dig at him for bringing his girlfriend to work. Sensing eyes on him, Ji-woo looks to meet Jung Hee's gaze, but she gets startled and leaves his line of sight immediately, embarrassed to be caught staring. Instead, she heads to where a majestic champagne tower is displayed, observing it intently even though she does not like alcohol at all. Meanwhile, Rockstar chases the media and attempts to get an interview for himself too. In a hurry, he doesn't realize when his foot gets caught up in a wire and pulls on it, misbalancing the lights right next to the champagne tower. Ji-woo notices this playing out in front of him and yells at Jung Hee to get out of the way. She, however, is frozen in place out of shock. In no time, Kim Yong takes note of the situation as well, and both men rush to Jung Hee's side from opposite ends to save her from the champagne tower falling. However, Ji-woo, in true male lead fashion, manages to reach Jung Hee first and saves her by tackling her, but during this action, he ends up injuring himself on his head. Everyone else at the party gathers around Ji-woo and Jung Hee on the floor, their faces showing their surprise. Jung Hee observes Ji-woo's head, and as her eyes notice the injury, she loses consciousness in an instant. Both Ji-woo and Jung Hee are put in an ambulance and taken straight to the hospital together. After they arrive and receive their needed treatments, Ji-woo looks straight at the nurse and inquires about Jung Hee's condition. He is surprised at how worried he is for her. The nurse reassures him that Jung Hee is not unconscious anymore. She is just sleeping because she overworked a lot. Ji-woo is shocked after hearing that. He looks at her while she sleeps and wonders if she has not been sleeping properly at all. He then walks over to Jung Hee's bedside and tries to wake her up. Jung Hee wakes up soon, and the very first thing she does is sit up and ask Ji-woo about the injury on his head. She wonders if it is as painful as it looks. Ji-woo replies that it hurts a lot, and on top of that, he also hurt his hand. He gives Jung Hee the good old "I told you so," saying that he already asked her to keep some distance from him because she's unlucky for him. Jung Hee becomes visibly sad after hearing this and decides to keep her distance from Ji-woo from now on. Ji-woo takes notice of how upset she got and assures her that he was just joking. Shortly afterwards, both of them leave the hospital together, and in that moment, Ji-woo remarks at her for being different from other women. Jung Hee is shocked upon hearing that, and at the very same moment, Kim Yong and Ye-ji arrive and meet them right outside the hospital. Ji-woo expresses how worried he is about Jung Hee, and watching this, Kim Yong feels a bit jealous, but leaves shortly after with Ye-ji as he cannot do anything no matter what he feels. The next day, Ji-hyuk gets a call from his mother while he's at home, in which she tries to convince him to get married. She considers the possibility of him not being attracted to females at all too, but Ji-hyuk ends up cutting the call rather than giving any response because he has never actually met a girl who actually understands him and his feelings, and someone who is interested in plants. Ji-woo comes out of his room and approaches Ji-hyuk to discuss the money matters, but Ji-hyuk puts it for later as he is an exceptionally busy man and leaves. Later, as he is brushing his teeth, Ji-woo still feels some pain in his hand, which reminds him of how he had saved Jung Hee's life the day before, even though he had never done that before for anyone. In the present time, Ji-woo keeps asking himself what his purpose was in saving her, but then leaves it owing it all to how amazing he is. He then calls Jung Hee back to back, but she cannot pick up his call since she's working as a waitress in a restaurant. After that, in a meeting at Ji-hyuk's company, everyone is seriously discussing the incident that occurred during the cocktail party. Everyone starts blaming each other for the incident, but then Ji-hyuk stands up and takes responsibility on behalf of everyone on his team, owing it to his own negligence. His team members, including Ye-ji, become angry over these words of his. Ye-ji's mother, who is the director of the company, already dislikes Ji-woo and his entire family, so she punishes Ji-hyuk's team a lot upon hearing this. Later that day, Ji-woo and Ji-hyuk meet at the local diner so that Ji-hyuk can hand over the money to him, which is due according to the agreement. Ji-woo wants to open a bar and shows his hand-drawn business plan to his brother. Ji-hyuk surprisingly agrees to give him $50,000, but Ji-woo tuned out to be disappointed because he was expecting way more money. He starts arguing with Ji-hyuk to try to convince him to give more money because he wanted to renovate the entire house. However, Ji-hyuk does not even consider budging from his offer and refuses to give him any more money. Despite wanting more, Ji-woo accepts the offer of $50,000 since he knows that is all he was going to get, and he was aware that it was either $50,000 or nothing. Ji-woo drives around without having a destination in his mind. He is feeling a cluster of emotions: anger, frustration, stress, and anxiousness because he was not able to get the amount of money he desired from Ji-hyuk. Ji-woo decides to call Jung Hee and sets up a plan with her to meet as soon as possible. They go to the nearby market together for some shopping to get started with the business idea of his and blow off some of the steam at the same time. He buys a lot of accessories for his room, such as pillows, blankets, sheets, and more. After the purchase, he hands over the bags to Jung Hee, who now carries them around throughout the market. When they both finally take a break to rest and eat some food, Jung Hee asks him if she's his luggage girl that he's making her carry around all this stuff from the entire time they've been shopping. To this, Ji-woo replies that he's not actually a bad person for making her carry the stuff because he was also treating her to a nice meal and taking care of her as well. This response leaves Jung Hee completely speechless. Back to his non-serious attitude, Ji-woo teases her by making remarks about her liking liking him gradually. Jung Hee is left speechless yet again, so she just continues to ignore the urge to answer because deep down inside her heart she knew he was right. She has indeed started to develop a liking for him. After lunch, they resume their shopping spree, looking for kitchen items. Ji-woo notices the expert knowledge Jung Hee has in this department and is very impressed by her attention to detail. Once they've gotten all the stuff, they have it delivered to Ji-woo's house, where Jung Hee also helps them around by hanging his curtains for him. Her curiosity ends up getting the better of her, and she asks Ji-woo why he's so particular when it comes to this place. To her surprise, Ji-woo mentions that he believes there's some secret treasure hidden somewhere in this place because his grandfather once told him about it. Surprised at his childish antics, Jung Hee jokes about how he owes her a couple of $100 for all her help as well, and Ji-woo entertains her idea. Later at night, while she was on her way to her night job, Jung Hee runs into 3 people who seem to be looking around for something. She walks on, wondering what they were up to, when she runs into Rockstar, who calls her out from his hiding place behind a tree. This man always seemed to run into trouble. Turns out, he's what those people were looking for. Jung Hee and Rockstar take shelter on a bench once those people leave, where Rockstar opens up to her about all the difficulties he's faced in his life since coming here. He tells her how he came to Korea 6 months ago with a good amount of money but blew it all away. Even though he earns by performing with a band, he's in search of a stable job. Jung Hee agrees with the need for a stable job but is more interested in hearing Rockstar sing, trying to gauge if he has real talent. However, as soon as he starts singing, she wishes she could take it back. It's the worst singing voice she's ever heard, and even passers-by seem to agree with that thought. Despite her request to stop, Rockstar seems unfazed and carries on singing wholeheartedly, scarring her ears in the process. The day is over by then, but Jung Hee's work schedule still isn't. She finishes her last job of the day, which is cleaning up at a sauna, and then chooses to sleep there for the night. On the other end, Ji-woo struggles with his lack of sleep again, and instead of opting for medicines, he chooses to text Jung Hee. Catching her right before she sleeps, they both have a good time texting through the night until Jung Hee finally succumbs to sleep and bids goodnight. In the morning, Ji-woo wakes up early at 9 a.m., feeling super refreshed. He's surprised by how well he slept, even though he didn't take medicines, and how unusual this was for him. At breakfast with his family, Ji-woo brings up the topic of his business and asks his mother to lend him some money for his bar. She's taken aback by this sudden request and voices her worries about what people would think of her, a pastor, for having 2 sons who are both in the alcohol business. Getting no positive response, Ji-woo takes a swift leave and instead heads out with his father. While they remark on how rare it is for his brother to lend Ji-woo money, they come across a really expensive car, which turns out to be his father's most prized possession, a car named Beyonce. Ji-woo marvels at the car, and an idea hatches in his head as he diverts his father's attention and takes him out for coffee. In a matter of time, when they come back from their coffee date, Ji-woo's father is taken aback at the sight of 2 men inspecting his prized car. Once seeing Ji-woo, the men remark on the mint condition the car is in and promise to pay a hefty amount for it. Upon hearing this, his father faints, wondering what the fate of his Beyonce would become. Despite his refusal to let the car depart from him, Ji-woo convinces his father to let the car be sold to fund his business idea, and assures him that once his business takes off, he'd buy him a great car again. All that's left for his father to do now is frantically watch as his car is taken away by the men. Back at his house, Ji-woo has the laborers set up the entire place. Once all done, he marvels at the sight of his vision for the bar taking shape. His attention quickly moves to the last of the laborers left at his place, Jung Hee, whom he hired to clean up his garden area. At the patio, a man who's Ji-woo's neighbor heads over to introduce himself. To break the ice, he remarks at Ji-woo for hiring a maid so quickly, referring to Jung Hee, who upon hearing this turns sour. The man introduces himself as Kim and extends a hand of friendship to Ji-woo, who in his true nature refuses to shake it and instead just observes the man. Kim feels awkward at his hand left hanging, but instead focuses on introducing himself as the owner of the cafe next door, who had to come to check if a new cafe competitor was his neighbor. His attempt at friendship is once again refused by Ji-woo, who chooses to sip on his drink instead of making a comment. Kim quickly takes his leave, unable to withstand this awkward environment, and inwardly curses Ji-woo for being so aloof towards him. Back in the newly built bar, Ji-woo and Jung Hee are still at work when she gets a call from Kim Yong and heads out to attend it. Kim Yong was simply worried to see that she hasn't returned home for the night, but Jung Hee reassures him that she slept at her night shift job. She barely mentions how she needs another night job when an idea pops into her head. She turns around to go back in, but notices that Ji-woo was lingering by the door overhearing her call, who ran back in as soon as he was spotted. Focusing on the idea, Jung Hee brings it up to Ji-woo. Her plan is to ask him for a job at his bar as she's in need of a job, and she knows he's in need of staff. True to his non-serious nature, Ji-woo first makes her promise that she wishes to be him as a prerequisite to working with him. Upon hearing her actually agree to him, Ji-woo is taken aback by his feelings and ends up reaching out to touch Jung Hee's hand, leaving both of them flustered and speechless. Jung Hee is the first to pull her hand away, making smart comments about how she's not like other girls and instead needs this job as she has great talent as a chef. She reminds him of how she was the head chef at the last bar she worked at, but Ji-woo remembers it differently. He had seen her working as a waitress there. At his refusal to believe in her talent as a chef, Jung Hee heads to the kitchen to whip up some dishes to prove how good of a cook she is. At first, Ji-woo isn't interested, but once he notices how meticulously she's working, he's impressed. Even more, when the dishes are done and he taste tests them, he's super impressed. He immediately remarks how Jung Hee is hired as his head chef. Jung Hee is ecstatic to hear this. Later, they head back out to the garden, where Jung Hee is bossed around by Ji-woo, who instructs her on how to set up the garden. Seeing her move sluggishly, he retorts that he'll cut 2 months' worth of pay from her salary for the time she broke his watch. Hearing this, Jung Hee turns red in the face and frantically jumps around in despair. Ji-woo is amused seeing her funny movements and takes a dozen pictures of her. Jung Hee chases Ji-woo around to delete them, but he doesn't budge one bit. At Ji-hook's company, his team is forced into serving at the cafeteria as punishment for their mess up at the party, as ordained by Ji-woo's mother. However, his team had always been in first place, so they handled this punishment gracefully as well. Back in the cafeteria kitchen, Kim Yong is also working when Ji-woo asks him about Jung Hee, wondering if she's his girlfriend. He freezes and is flustered at the sudden question and sheepishly turns it around. This lets Ji-woo know all she has to. Her doubt confirmed that Kim Yong probably likes Jung Hee. Once free from work, the entire team all have lunch together in the cafeteria. Ji-woo recalls back to when she saw her mother gleaming at seeing Ji-hyuk punished. Not giving it a second thought, she blurts out her exact thoughts in front of the entire team and asks Ji-hyuk why he puts up with her mother's behavior when he could easily go work at his grandfather's company. Not liking the course of where this conversation is heading, Ji-hyuk takes his leave without answering her. Everyone at the table is left marveling at how brazen her questioning was, except for Ji-woo, who, true to her innocent question, doesn't think it was wrong of her to question that. Back in his office, Ji-hyuk recalls the good old days when the company was run by Ji-woo's father. The man was fond of Ji-hyuk and had taken him under his wing. However, once his health started deteriorating, Ji-hyuk stuck around to make sure the company was taken over because Ji-woo's father had once called and passed the responsibility of taking care of the company and his family to Ji-hyuk. Bound by sentiment, that's why Ji-hyuk had put up with everything so far. The day had turned to night, but Jung Hee and Ji-woo still hadn't gotten tired of each other. Still in Ji-woo's garden, they're discussing the bar when Ji-woo mentions his unique idea of opening the bar in the day instead of the night. He claims it's so that more day drinkers and alcoholics like his own self come to the place. Jung Hee is taken aback by his stupidity and immediately tries to shut the idea down, wondering who'd come to the bar in the daytime. Taken aback by the discouragement, Ji-woo reminds Jung Hee that it's his bar, and so his rules would be followed on how to run it. And if she has a problem, she can always leave. With that, he leaves her out in the garden alone. Later at another bar in town, Ji-woo meets up with his doctor to get his sleep medication that he ran out of. His past is revealed as they discuss his sleeping troubles, recalling how he's had them since Yeji's brother had an incident years ago because of developing sundown syndrome, a condition where a person loses his mind out of fear once the sun sets and can have episodes where they act out screaming. That is also why he was opting to open his bar in the day instead of the night, fearing creating a scene in front of his customers. His doctor is saddened to see him this way and tries suggesting letting go of this incident that happened 11 years ago, but Ji-woo is disheartened by his condition and leaves without replying. Back home in his bed, Ji-woo finds himself staring at the photos he took of Jung Hee, his crush on her increasing and set in motion by now. On the other hand, Jung Hee works hard at her night job in the sauna and gets into bed after a hard working day. Initially going through the photos of her mom, she comes across a photo of Ji-woo on her phone and finds herself staring at it lovingly. She too recalls the moments spent by his side, how he teases her, and her feelings for him also seem to be increasing. The next morning, Jung Hee goes to collect her salary from the sauna when she's instructed not to come to work from the next day as an old worker, is returning, and her job is made redundant. Disheartened, Jung Hee quietly collects her salary and leaves. On her way out, she sees a banner of Paris and takes a picture with it, posing as if she was in front of the Eiffel Tower. She sends it to her mom and lies to her that she's in Paris currently. Her mom sees her message instantly and is overjoyed to see that her daughter has finally made it to Paris. However, that's not the case at all. At night, she finds herself back at Kim Yong's and tells him about her new job at the bar. She leaves out the fact that Ji-woo is the owner of the bar, knowing it would upset Kim Yong as he dislikes Ji-woo. She also tells him how she lost her night shift job and so they would have to share the room at night now. Being the gentleman he is, Kim Yong offers to take the sofa and leave the bed to her, but Jung Hee refuses and crashes on the sofa herself. Dozing off, she thanks Kim Yong for all he's done for her and states that he's all she has now. Kim Yong feels these words piercing his heart deeply. Once he's sure that Jung Hee has slept, he comes over to drape a blanket over her and shares her sentiments. They allow him to acknowledge his feelings for her as well, and he's struck by this overwhelming urge to take care of her, for she is his first and only love. The next morning, Jung Hee heads over to the bar first thing in the morning, where Ji-woo is nowhere to be seen. She calls out to him, wondering where he is, but her words die in her throat as she comes in front of him. Ji-woo appears in front of her with new hair and semi-formal attire. If she found him good-looking before, she finds him double attractive now, her heart fluttering at the sight of him. Seeing Jung Hee in a daze, Ji-woo teases her, asking if she's finally fallen for him. That works quickly to break Jung Hee out of her daze. Ji-woo explains how he's changed his look completely because now that he's an owner of a business, he needs to appear like that as well. On that note, he also instructs Jung Hee to refer to him as Captain now, a playful smirk dancing on his lips as he revels in his newfound role. Out of his spell, Jung Hee starts drilling him, trying to figure out why he's opening the bar in the day. But Ji-woo shuts her questions down by saying he has a side business of entertaining girls in his bed at night. That works like a charm, and Jung Hee quickly disappears from in front of him, wondering what a cheap man he is. She puts up banners for workers needed when another one of her brilliant ideas strikes, and so she finds herself introducing Rockstar to Ji-woo. Ji-woo, not impressed by her antics, wonders what he's signing up for now. Without further ado, Rockstar introduces himself, and Jung Hee introduces him as a singer who can also work at the bar. Ji-woo is quite opposed to this idea, but finds himself unable to say no to Jung Hee upon seeing her excitement, so he agrees to let Rockstar work at the bar. They're all interrupted when a girl walks into the bar, seemingly attracted by the posters. She's introduced as Rose, and puts on a lovely bartending show for everyone, showcasing her meticulously bartending skills and earning applause. Even though she explains she's a certified bartender with a good amount of experience, Ji-woo puts a stop to her act. He considers himself a master at bartending, so his ego gets in the way of hiring Rose initially. However, once he taste tests the drink she's made, he's forced to swallow his words and marvel at how good the drink is. On the spot, Rose is hired, and Ji-woo leaves his newly hired workers to get to know each other. Gathered around in the garden, they all find themselves trying out Rockstar's singing performance. Ji-woo is taken aback by how bad the singing is, and wonders why he's always roped into agreeing to please Jung Hee. The lady in question and Rose, however, don't share his sentiments, and instead enjoy Rockstar's performance while he shoots Ji-woo a wink, shocking him further. When Rockstar asks Ji-woo for money before performing other songs, Ji-woo finally understands why he's friends with Jung Hee, pointing out how both friends have a habit of asking for money at every point. With that, he heads inside and asks Jung Hee to follow him. Trying his hand at making new drinks, Ji-woo strikes up an innocent conversation with Jung Hee. He discreetly tries asking her about her relationship with Kim Yong, inquiring if they're just friends or more than that. Jung Hee honestly replies, letting him know that Kim Yong is her best friend, and while they're not dating, they've always faced life together. A distasteful taste grows in Ji-woo's mouth from jealousy, and he chooses not to comment further. Once the drinks are ready, Ji-woo hands them to his newly hired workers. Jung Hee notices how he once again had made her a mojito, and asks him why he only makes this drink for her, wondering if there was something more behind it. In true curious fashion, Ji-woo simply lets her know that it's his favorite drink. Diverting to a more serious topic, Ji-woo shares his business plan with everyone. He mentions his strategy of opening the bar in the day and keeping the alcohol content in the drinks low to maximize profits. With special caution, he warns them all that his room on the second floor is off limits to everyone as he values his privacy. All is settled, and so they pop a champagne bottle open for celebration. Rockstar takes the celebration a little further and gets too tipsy, clinging to Jung Hee's waist. This does not go unnoticed by Ji-woo, who feels that burning in the pit of his stomach again, and instructs Rockstar to leave Jung Hee. Rockstar doesn't waste time and instead comes on to Ji-woo to show his affection. Much later, Ji-woo finds himself being dragged by Yeji to meet some of her friends. While introducing him, Yeji mentions that he's going to be her husband in the near future, to which her friends offer their congratulations. Unenthusiastic about this whole ordeal, Ji-woo remains quiet, not agreeing with her but unable to disagree as well. Unamused, he takes his leave quietly from the get-together and heads outside for some space, but Yeji doesn't understand and follows him outside. She pesters him for coming outside suddenly, but Ji-woo can now speak his mind away from the prying eyes of people. He requests her not to pull something like this again, as he does not like meeting her friends in this unusual manner. Not understanding his perspective, Ji-woo feels hurt by his words and persists in asking why he's acting distant, especially since before her brother Min-jo's death, He used to care for her deeply. Ji-woo is incredulous at her audacity and decides to leave before saying something regrettable. That night, Ji-woo reminisces about a childhood memory when Yi-ji had confessed her feelings for him, asking him to protect her and be by her side forever. She'd been persistent, refusing to take no for an answer until Min-jo joined them and playfully teased his sister for finally expressing her love. The next morning, Ji-woo somberly prepares to leave for Min-jo's memorial, as it is the anniversary of his death, which coincides with Ji-woo's birthday. The boys shared a birthday. Meanwhile, Yeji is getting ready to leave when her mother notices her attire and questions her plans for the day, reminding her that it's her brother's memorial day. Yeji refuses to succumb to guilt manipulation and criticizes her mother for mourning the dead more than celebrating the living. She confronts her mother for wrongly blaming Ji-woo for Min-jo's death for the past 10 years, determined not to let it overshadow Ji-woo's birthday celebration. Enraged, Yeji's mother begins to lecture Yeji, but Yeji leaves before hearing it and heads out. After placing flowers at Min-jo's memorial, Ji-woo leaves. As he does, he unexpectedly encounters Yeji's mother and becomes nervous upon seeing her. Unable to look at her, he keeps his gaze down. Yeji's mother expresses her deep hatred towards Ji-woo and sternly warns him to stay away from Yeji. She commands him never to come to Min-jo's memorial again, as only family members are allowed. With a cold stare, she then enters the memorial. Her harsh words and expression hit Ji-woo hard, his face turning to a frown, overwhelmed with sadness. Inside the memorial, Yeji's mother goes to where Min-jo's remains are and breaks down in tears, unable to control her emotions, prompting her husband to come and console her. Meanwhile, as Ji-woo drives through the bustling streets, he feels his health deteriorating. Overcome with sadness, he remembers the pain and sorrow everyone felt on the day Min-jo passed away. He recalls Yeji's mother's tears and anguish, but also the moment she approached him, hugged him, and whispered that Min-jo is in a better place now. However, she also told him he would never see that place because he is going to hell for Min-jo's murder. Ji-woo remembers the shock he felt at that time, feeling speechless. These memories deepen his depression, leading him to park his car on the side of the road to catch his breath. The clouds outside darken, and thunder roars, startling Jung Hee as she works peacefully in her room. Her tranquility is interrupted by a call from Rockstar, urgently requesting her presence at his house. Startled by the storm, she rushes to his aid, only to find his room flooded from the ceiling leak. Despite their efforts to salvage the instruments and valuables, the damage is done. They sit on the staircase, resigned, watching the storm through the balcony. Rockstar asks Jung Hee about their next steps. She consoles him, explaining that once the storm subsides, a plumber can fix the leak and they can begin restoring the items. Realizing she's late for her responsibilities at Ji-woo's bar, she rushes over. However, she hesitates before entering. Ji-woo has strictly prohibited anyone from entering after 6 p.m., but Jung Hee knows the vegetables must be tended to, as leaving them outside overnight could cause them to rot. Using the spare keys entrusted to her by Ji-woo, she enters through the side entrance and heads to the kitchen to tend to the vegetables. Hearing a noise at the door, she investigates and finds Yeji standing there. Yeji rushes in, frantically calling for Ji-woo. Jung Hee informs her that Ji-woo is likely not present. Yeji questions why Jung Hee is there without Ji-woo. Jung Hee explains that she's cleaning up and tending to the vegetables. Despite Yeji's dislike for Jung Hee due to Ji-woo's injury while saving her, Yeji trusts her to deliver a cake and birthday wishes to Ji-woo when he arrives. Jung Hee accepts the task. After some time passed, Jung Hee decided to take out the trash. As she exited the bar, Ji-woo finally arrived and they both saw each other. He immediately questioned her, asking why she was at the bar at this time. She answered, telling him that since tomorrow was the grand opening, she was just there to finish all of the remaining tasks. He replied, asking her to leave if all the tasks were completed. She thought to herself that no matter what she did or how hard she worked, he never appreciated her. Once inside, the first thing Ji-woo did was get a drink for himself. Jung Hee approached him to give him the cake Yeji had given her. She then asked him why he never told her it was his birthday, claiming that if she had known, she would have decorated the place for him and given him a surprise. She then started to sing the happy birthday song for him, but he cut her off and asked her why she was still there, even after she was told not to be there after 6 p.m. She repeated what she had stated earlier, reminding him that she was there to finish the pending tasks before the grand opening tomorrow. And she also added that instead of being thanked or paid extra, she was being yelled at and not being appreciated. She said that she even wished him a happy birthday, and that alone deserved a thanks. This struck a nerve in him. He slammed his hand on the tabletop, crushing the canned beverage in his hand between the table and his bare hand. He got up and said, "Can you not see that I am in a bad mood, or are you taking me as a joke?" She got so frightened that she started shivering out of pure fear. Ji-woo then started to tell her that he absolutely hated his birthday, complaining about the fact that she handed him a cake. He then picked up the cake box and threw it across the room where it splattered on the ground, getting completely ruined. Jung Hee yelled back at him, wondering why he is acting like this. His face completely changes. The anger on his face is then transformed into a smirk. He makes direct eye contact with Jung Hee and says that she looks like a girl who will do anything for money. Going even further, he suggests that she spends the night with for money as he is in a bad mood today and could use the cheering up. At that moment, Jung Hee has had enough of this nonsense. She does not even hesitate to slap him right across the face. After this rage-filled slap, she speaks her mind. "I have not seen a man as cheap and messed up as you." She exclaims that he went as low as a man possibly can, and then she storms off. He looks across the room and his eyes catch a piece of paper sticking out of the cake box he just destroyed. He walks over and picks up that piece of paper and then unfolds it, just to find out it was a birthday note signed by Ye-ji. He then realizes that the cake was given to him by Ye-ji and not by Jung Hee. Jung Hee makes her way to the nearest bus stop, just thinking how could Ji-woo ever sink so low and say that to her. She then gets down on the ground and starts crying. When it was time to catch her bus, she realized that she left her bag and purse back at the bar. As she makes her way back to the bar, the storm gets stronger and so does the rain. But luckily she finds an umbrella that someone had thrown away, so she grabs it and uses it. Just as she is about to reach the bar, she spots a kitten inside a box taking shelter from the storm. She feels pity and sadness for the cat, so she picks up the cat and takes it with her as well. She sneaks into the bar only to find Ji-woo asleep on a countertop right next to her bag and purse. She quietly makes her way over there. The moment she grabs her bag, he wakes up and grabs her wrist, saying that the slap she struck him with really hurt, so now both of them are even. She then frees her wrist from his hand and vents all her frustration out and cusses him out, asking him who he is to try to make a comment on her character. She said that she cannot believe herself for making a friend as low and cheap and antiquated as him. She lets him know that she will never come here again, and she will never let him see her again. She starts to storm off, but he chases after her and grabs her by the arm and tells her to stop. She starts screaming, and at that very moment, he said that he's sorry. He says that he made a huge mistake. He did not mean that he was just really angry. Jung Hee does not know how to reply to that, so she remains speechless. Ji-woo then lets her arm go and slouches down to put his head on her shoulder out of shame and regret, because he is disappointed in himself. Meanwhile, Jung Hee stands still like a statue, unable to speak out of the pain she is feeling because his actions really hurt her. Jung Hee is in a room at the bar talking to the kitten she rescued earlier, sharing her thoughts. How could he even say something like that to me and then apologize to me as if nothing had ever happened? How could anyone do that to someone? While she was sharing these thoughts with the kitten, Ji-woo enters the room and puts some fresh clothes on top of the shelf for her since her clothes were drenched from the rain. She changes clothes and then proceeds to leave. He is sitting by the door and asks her if she is still angry at him. She chooses not to reply to him, so she just throws the towel in her hand at him. Once she left, he went back upstairs to his room. However, the thunder roared loudly and the electricity in his house went away. Sitting there all alone in the dark made him very depressed and gave him flashbacks again. In the flashbacks, it was Jung Hee and Min-jo. They are standing at the entrance of a forest, and he is begging Min-jo not to go in and is trying to stop him, but Min-jo does not stop and runs in there. After a few minutes, there was an incident which led to Min-jo's death. Min-jo's entire family blames him for the death. Just as his depression took over him, as if it was going to become too much to handle, the electricity came back and the lights turned on again. He was finally able to breathe and was able to stop having these flashbacks. It was as if he had been transported to another world, or as if he had died and came back to life. Returning home to her comfort zone, Jung Hee isn't greeted by Kim Young, but instead teased by him for her oddly ill-fitting shirt. Jung Hee isn't as amused as him, however, and tells him how it's her boss's shirt that she borrowed because her shirt got soaked in the rain. Recalling what transpired at the bar earlier, Jung Hee is disheartened and asks Kim Young if she truly seems like a desperate girl who would do anything for money. Kim Young puts two and two together and realizes someone must have said something to her. The thought of it angers him, and he badgers her to name whoever said that to her. However, Jung Hee shuts him down, telling him that she had taken matters into her own hands and had already dealt with the guy. A sense of pride overtakes Kim Young, and he reassures her that this nonsense speaks nothing of her character. He gets carried away by his feelings and starts complimenting her instead, working to cheer up Jung Hee. The next day, everyone gathers at the bar, anticipating the opening today. She sheepishly shows the stray cat she took last night to Rose and Rockstar, stating her confusion for what to do with the cat now. Ji-woo overhears this exchange and tells her that it's a no-brainer and that she has to leave the cat back where she got it from. Jung Hee stands her ground, knowing she has the upper hand in the situation, and tells Ji-woo that she'll only forgive his misbehavior from last night if he lets her keep the cat. Once again, Ji-woo finds himself giving in to Jung Hee without wanting to, begrudgingly nodding in agreement as he concedes defeat to her persuasive charm. In the kitchen, Ji-woo and Jung Hee once again find themselves disagreeing over what meals to serve for the bar's opening, because Ji-woo refuses to listen to Jung Hee's suggestions. Seeing these two bickering again, Rose ponders over the possibility of something more brewing between them and shares her thoughts with Rockstar, who observes the dynamic between them with keen interest, sensing an underlying tension. In another corner, Kim Yong is diligently working in the office and headed for his meeting when he passes by Ye-ji, who stops him in his tracks. Her agenda is to ask him about Jung Hee, but she stops herself before she blurts out that she works for Ji-woo. Instead, she cunningly plants the idea in his head that there's something Jung Hee hasn't told him, and questions the nature of their friendship if Jung Hee is keeping things from him. This sows seeds of insecurity and curiosity in Kim Yong's mind, but Ye-ji doesn't give him more information and leaves him wondering, her intentions cloaked in mystery. Back at the bar, the team spirit is quite low as no customers have shown up so far. However, things pick up pace as two customers walk in, giving life to Ji-woo, who had been disheartened since the morning. Before long, the bar is filled with customers flocking in, their laughter and chatter turning what was once an empty bar into a lively, full-running place bustling with energy and excitement. Outside the bar, Kim, the cafe owner, is walking around dejected at the lack of customers at his cafe today when he passes by a bunch of women heading to the cafe for coffee. However, they stop dead in their tracks when they see Ji-woo's daytime bar and instead decide to head for drinks instead of coffee. Observing this, Kim is angered by the problems the bar is creating for him. Being the attentive captain he is, Ji-woo personally serves the newly arrived customers and impresses them with his skills. He takes it up a notch by flirting with them to keep them hooked too. Unbeknownst to him, Jung Hee is observing this exchange from the side, and jealousy runs in her veins. Rose catches this change in Jung Hee's mood and confronts her, asking if she has feelings for the captain. Despite Jung Hee's refusal, Rose sets it upon herself to help Jung Hee out in the love department. In a good turn of events, Ji-woo's parents arrive at the bar to see their son in his environment and support him. Their presence means a lot to Ji-woo, who serves them personally and tries to take their order. But the mention of alcohol puts his mother off, and she turns to leave, only to run into Jung Hee. When the two women run into each other, they are overjoyed to meet again and reminisce about the time they met in the church, where Jung Hee found solace in crying to the pastor. The pastor is happy to see Jung Hee working here as she thinks highly of the girl, and is relieved to know that girls like her are who Ji-woo hired. Otherwise, she had expected Ji-woo to hire distasteful girls who wear revealing clothes and strut around. Ji-woo tries to turn their reunion sour by mentioning how Jung Hee was stealing eggs from the church, but to his surprise, the pastor is already aware of that and instead warns Ji-woo to behave. Jung Hee is over the moon and seats Ji-woo's parents comfortably before going to fetch fruits for them. In the garden, Rockstar performs live music with his band, especially singing a song about how love is a scary thing and should be avoided. Ji-woo's mother is taken aback by the disheartening mood of the song and wonders why he's performing such a song on a day that's celebratory for her son. However, the crowd seems to love it and applauds Rockstar for his performance. In another corner, Ye-ji's mother has dinner with her other posh friends. One of them brings to her attention how Ye-ji has been going around announcing her desire to marry Ji-woo. To their surprise, the same boy who was involved in her brother's death. Hearing this from her acquaintances, Ye-ji's mother finds it hard to swallow her food, angered, but she covers it up by simply playing it cool and pointing out that Ye-ji is young and naive, unaware of how things really work, making this match impossible. Speaking of Ye-ji, unaware of whatever is happening in her world, she sips on her coffee and takes a dozen selfies to post on her social media. The sudden inflow of compliments on her posts gives her the validation she was craving, but before she can bask in it, her sweet time is interrupted by Kim Yong, who pops out of nowhere. He questions Ye-ji to tell him what she was hinting at earlier, and annoyed by his intrusion, Ye-ji reveals to him that Jung Hee has been working with Ji-woo and apparently hiding this fact from Kim Yong. Stupefied at first, Kim Yong feels his shock melting away into anger. Back at the bar, Ji-woo's brother, Ji-hook, pays them a visit, bringing an Indian cactus plant as an opening gift for the place. While seating him, Rose recognizes the plant, much to Ji-hook's surprise. She mentions how her parents had a flower farm, and without even trying, she had gained Ji-hook's interest. Before this could process, Ji-woo calls out to his brother, letting Rose learn of that too. The two brothers discuss the opening of the business, and Ji-hook tries to offer advice to Ji-woo about not getting carried away with the opening. In the kitchen, Rose finds Jung Hee observing the discussion between the two brothers and fawns over how she's fallen for love at first sight with Ji-hook. In his little corner, Kim Yong worries over the fact that Jung Hee lied to him and went against his advice to stay away from Ji-woo. Later on, he has drinks after work with his office buddy with whom he shares his feelings and asks what a girl lying to you for another guy means. His friend's advice is that the girl must really like a guy to lie to someone for him, and this lets down Kim Yong so bad he feels his heart breaking and struggles to hold back his tears. At the bar, Ji-woo finds Jung Hee in the storage room petting the stray cat she brought. He teases Jung Hee and decides to name the cat Beer as her mother Jung Hee was named Soju. Jung Hee remains unamused and goes back to work in the kitchen. Once done, she hands Ji-woo back something in a bag, which turns out to be the shirt she had taken from that day when it rained. Without thinking it through, Ji-woo brings up the shirt to sniff it, happy to find that even after being washed, it still smells of Jung Hee's perfume. Jung Hee asks if it hasn't been cleaned properly, but Ji-woo lovingly caresses her hair and heads out, leaving Jung Hee flustered and stunned. She's about to head out for the night when she remembers the comment Ji-woo made about entertaining girls at night. Curiosity gets the best of her, so she sneaks upstairs to his room to find out what he's up to because her brain couldn't stop imagining him with other girls. To her pleasant surprise, there's no one upstairs but Ji-woo, who heads out from the shower. Making it tricky for Jung Hee to quietly leave, she hides around corners looking to flee. Once out of his room without being caught, she catches her breath and is relieved to know he wasn't with anyone, but at the same time, wondering why he lied to her about entertaining other girls at night. When she gets back home, Jung Hee finds Kim Yong dead asleep on the sofa. She drapes a blanket over him before she starts prepping dinner, wondering how hard Kim Yong must have worked today to be out cold like this. Unbeknownst to her, Kim Yong was wide awake and worried about the time she was spending with Ji-woo, but he still could not muster up the courage to ask her about it, and so avoided confronting her. The next day at the bar, Jung Hee and Ji-woo are joking around when Ye-ji interrupts them. She arrives with a delivery of flowers as an attempt to apologize to Ji-woo for their last conversation. Ji-woo forgives her and takes her to the bar table to make her a drink. During their conversation, Ye-ji asks about the cake she sent for his birthday, but Ji-woo, knowing how he destroyed the cake, gets flustered and changes the subject to how Ye-ji is working with Kim Yong. This piques Ye-ji's interest, and she uses it to mention to Ji-woo how Jung Hee has hidden the fact that she's working with him from Kim Yong, hoping to upset him. However, this information motivates Ji-woo instead, sparking a determination in him to uncover the truth. Motivated, Ji-woo dresses up and heads out to the garden to see Jung Hee. There, he confronts her with this information, wondering why she's hiding this from her so-called best friend. Jung Hee draws a line to protect her privacy, and instead redirects the conversation to why Ye-ji is telling Ji-woo this information, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. Ji-woo picks up on Jung Hee's possible jealousy and clears the air with her, explaining that Ye-ji is not his girlfriend and assuring her of their friendship. He then teases Jung Hee over her jealousy, but Jung Hee leaves without entertaining his amusement, her emotions swirling in a whirlwind of confusion and longing. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Jung Hee's mother handles the work all by herself, wondering where Song has disappeared to instead of helping her. Unbeknownst to her, Song has left with his bag packed, headed to Seoul to try his hand at business. He tries to flirt with some girls on the bus, but fails to get a response from them, his nerves getting the best of him as he embarks on this new adventure. Back at the bar, Jung Hee lends a listening ear to an upset customer who is dejected about not having a job. She advises him not to give up and tries her best to lift his spirits, for which he's grateful and gives her a hug. Jung Hee, being kind, returns the hug. However, Ji-woo, noticing this from the kitchen, becomes jealous and confronts her when she returns, ordering her to remain professional and not go around hugging people. Surprised by his hypocrisy, Jung Hee gets hot-headed and counters back, reminding him of the time he openly flirted with customers. This leaves him speechless with no reply, and so Jung Hee takes her leave from the kitchen to cool down. Rose had observed all of this transpiring from a corner and immediately comes to interrogate Ji-woo about his feelings of jealousy at seeing Jung Hee with someone else. Ji-woo, however, plays it off coolly by mocking her and leaves the room, faking a laugh at the thought. However, Rose doesn't buy into his act and feels like she needs to trust her intuition with these two, her suspicion growing stronger as she watches their interactions. Ye-ji is enjoying a nice meal with her friends at another place when she recalls how Ji-woo acted when she asked about how he liked the cake she sent him. Knowing him for such a long time, she caught on to the fact that he was lying and must have not even tried the cake. This puts a damper on her mood, and suddenly a nice meal out with her friends doesn't even seem to fix her mood, her thoughts lingering on Ji-woo's actions and their implications. Back at the bar, everybody else takes leave for the day, but Ji-woo instructs Jung Hee to stay back and make noodles for him. She reluctantly agrees, not knowing that Ji-woo is trying to buy more time to spend with her, oblivious to his ulterior motive. While he eats the noodles, he has Jung Hee accompany him, and he uses this opportunity to ask her more about why she had lied to Kim Yong about working here. He's trying to pry the truth out of her, but she keeps deflecting by making excuses, saying that it's because Kim Young's boss is Ji-woo's brother, and so she doesn't want the nature of the relationship to be complicated. Ji-woo senses her evasion but decides to bide his time, determined to unravel the mystery behind Jung Hee's secrecy. Still unsatisfied with her answer, Ji-woo probes her and asks if that's the truth because he has noticed a change in her behavior that suggests she might have developed feelings for him, which is why she lied to Kim Young. Jung Hee is stunned by his brazenness and waves this thought away. She gets up to leave, but Ji-woo stops her and insists on dropping her home in his car, pretending to be thoughtful by letting her save money on the bus. On the way back in the car, Ji-woo is happy to be spending more time with her, as he rarely gets time alone with her, but Jung Hee remains quiet because she's nervous about the growing relationship between her and Ji-woo. Outside Jung Hee's apartment, Ji-woo tries to buy more time and asks her if she lives alone. Jung Hee hides the truth about living with Kim Young and instead tries to leave, but Ji-woo asks her to invite him over for coffee. Jung Hee is surprised by this sudden imposition and denies having coffee, even the alternative of drinking that he suggests she refuses. Amused by her nervousness, Ji-woo goes to caress her hair, but Jung Hee tries to stop him for fear of someone seeing them. Unknown to her, it was too late, and Kim Young had already noticed this exchange from the window. His fears of losing Jung Hee to Ji-woo were set in stone now, seeing how they were around each other, and he could do nothing but stare after them in despair. By the time Jung Hee heads upstairs to the apartment, Kim Young is back to pretending like nothing ever happened, and quietly works away at his laptop, not even greeting her. Sensing his upset mood, Jung Hee asks him what happened and if he's had a bad day at work. Although her question was innocent, Kim Young has had enough of dodging around the topic and straight up asks her why she has been lying to him about working with Ji-woo. Caught by surprise, Jung Hee quickly recovers and reveals the truth that she had been doing so because Kim Young doesn't like Ji-woo at all. She apologizes to him and comes around to hug him to make up, but Kim Young cannot seem to control his emotions anymore and pushes her away. He bursts out at her for not caring about lying to him and dismissing his feelings, almost blurting out that he has feelings for her but stops in his tracks. Jung Hee is stunned by his outburst and unsure of how to act around him. Taking advantage of the silence, Kim Young builds up the courage to let her know of his feelings for her, but before he can express himself fully, the doorbell rings. The voice of Jung Hee's brother, Song, fills the apartment as he calls out to Kim Young to open the door. Ice runs through Jung Hee's veins as she remembers that her family thinks she's in Paris. She rushes to the bathroom to hide while Kim Young goes to open the door. However, Song bursts into the apartment as soon as the door is opened and heads straight for the washroom, tired from the travel and wanting to relieve himself. Kim Young throws himself in front of the bathroom door and tells Song that his girlfriend is in the washroom. He rushes Song to the public toilet in the building instead. While Song uses the bathroom, Kim Young rushes back to the apartment and urges Jung Hee to leave quickly before her brother finds out they've been staying together and Jung Hee was in Korea, not Paris. Jung Hee does not need to hear more and rushes straight outside. She stops to take a breath outside the building, but Kim Young calls out to her from the window and urges her to go further so she isn't stopped. Jung Hee panics and runs straight away into the street, further away from the apartment. Kim Young picked up a bag and began to hide all of Jung Hee's clothes and belongings. While he was doing that, Song came out of the washroom. Kim Young asked him why he was there and what had brought him. Song replied that he had come to start his career in a new life in Seoul, hoping to settle there. He added that until he found a job and a place to live, he would stay with Kim Young. This statement left Kim Young shocked. Meanwhile, Jung Hee sat at the bus stop pondering her next steps. Suddenly, her memory kicked in, and she remembered a couch in the storeroom at Ji-woo's house. She decided to make her way there. At that exact moment, Ji-woo was playing with Jung Hee's cat, to which he had become attached. He jokingly asked the cat to call him daddy. Ji-woo, who often stayed up late due to his phobia, stacked his glasses and bottles of alcohol into a pyramid to cure his boredom and pass the time. Meanwhile, Jung Hee had reached his house and quietly entered, sneaking her way to the storeroom. She immediately lay on top of the couch and fell asleep instantly. When she woke up, her first thought was to check if it was safe to leave. She cautiously opened the door just a little bit, enough to take a small peek outside and check if the coast was clear. However, it was not. When she peeked, the first thing she saw was Ji-woo standing in a pair of boxers and an open robe, revealing his abs. Jung Hee became too focused on his appearance, and before she knew it, she was standing there, staring at his body. The only thought going through her mind at that time was how handsome he looked. But Ji-woo caught her, and the moment their eyes met, she realized she had been caught. She quickly slammed the door shut. Now she's contemplating whether she should tell him the truth, admitting that she spent the night there, or if she should lie and say that she arrived early in the morning. She ponders this same thought repeatedly. Eventually, she decides to have another peek. When she opens the door, she doesn't find Ji-woo in front of her, so she looks around the room from her same spot to see where he went. To her surprise, when she looks right next to herself, she finds Ji-woo standing there. Startled, she screams, and Ji-woo is also caught by surprise and gets scared too. Ji-woo then asks her why she got scared and why she screamed, to which Jung Hee replies that it's nothing. She just came to do some cleaning because she woke up early, so she thought, why not come to work early today? Ji-woo actually believes her. After a few minutes, she calls Kim Yong to follow up on the entire situation and to ask why her brother was there. Kim Yong tells her that he is there to stay for a few days until he is able to find a job and a house in Seoul. Kim Yong then asks her where she went and where she slept for the night, so she decides to lie and says that she slept in the bath hall. She then asks Kim Yong to complete whatever he was about to say last night. Kim Yong tells her to leave it. Maybe someday in the future they will discuss this, and then he hangs up. Kim Yong gets back to work, and while he is working, he overhears two people backbiting about Yeji's mother, saying that her mother was in an affair even when her first husband was alive, so that is why the husband got sick and died. Kim Yong does not want to listen to this, so he feels it is best if he moves away. As he turns to leave, he sees Yeji standing there, and by the way she looks, he can tell that she also overheard what they were saying and she did not like it, so she just leaves from there before Kim Yong could say anything. Yeji goes to the roof and sits there to clear her mind. Kim Yong, noticing her distress, purchases 2 coffees and joins her on the roof. He comforts her, and she confides in him, expressing that while she knows she should ignore what others are saying, she finds it difficult to do so. Kim Yong consoles her, and she appreciates his support. Yeji then tells Kim Yong that she wants to team up with him. She reveals that she has a crush on Ji-woo and wants to be with him. She encourages Kim Yong to also express his feelings for Jung Hee and be with her. Both of them are insecure about Jung Hee and Ji-woo working together, so after some encouragement from Yejin, Kim Yong agrees. Yejin gives him 2 tickets to a musician event and tells him to take Jung Hee with him no matter what. She also advises him to express his feelings of love to Jung Hee. Meanwhile, Ji-woo's bar is completely empty. Many people came on the first day, but afterward, the bar remains empty. Whenever he looks at the cash register and sees that he is not making any money, he becomes even more depressed. Jung Hee's earlier warning about the daytime bar not working comes to mind, and he realizes she was right. She had advised him to listen to her more often. This realization deepens Ji-woo's sadness. Jung Hee went outside to feed the cat, and that's when Rose approached her and handed her 2 very expensive tickets to a musician event, insisting that she keep them. Jung Hee was shocked and asked why Rose was giving her such expensive tickets for free. Rose explained that she had initially planned to attend the event with her ex-husband, but had since changed her mind. Jung Hee was surprised and asked if Rose had been married before, to which Rose replied yes. She recounted how her husband had been caring and loving at first, but had eventually started cheating on her, leading to their divorce. Rose expressed that she wanted Jung Hee to go to the show with Ji-woo. Jung Hee initially declined, explaining that there was nothing romantic between her and Ji-woo. However, Rose insisted, suggesting that they could go as friends. Eventually, Jung Hee accepted the tickets and thanked Rose. Jung Hee, Ji-woo, and the others discussed strategies to help the bar survive and thrive. Jung Hee had one recommendation that she repeated several times. Ji-woo should convert it into a night bar to increase its success. However, Ji-woo was hesitant to accept the need for such a change. Rose suggested increasing advertising and distributing free discount coupons to attract more customers. Ji-woo liked this idea and teasingly remarked to Jung Hee that she should learn from Rose, implying Rose's intelligence. Jung Hee's mood soured a bit after Ji-woo's banter. Everyone except Ji-woo went outside to distribute the coupons and pamphlets. When Kim, Ji-woo's neighbor, received one, he exclaimed, "Discount coupon my foot," before tearing it up and throwing it away. Despite this negative reaction, they received a good response from others, as many people took the discount coupons. At the end of the day, when Yeji was leaving to go home, her mother's car pulled up next to her. The driver got out and opened the rear gate, revealing Yeji's mother inside, asking her to get into the car. She wanted Yeji to meet someone, so despite her reluctance, Yeji had no choice but to go along. Jung Hee sat by the water, all alone, waiting for Kim Yong to bring her belongings. When he finally arrived, they both sat together by the water, enjoying the view and talking. Kim Yong asked her about her plans. She replied that she didn't know what to do next. Kim Yong suggested that she buy an apartment as soon as possible and not worry about money, as he would pay for the rent, bills, and expenses. However, Jung Hee disagreed, not wanting to burden Kim Yong any further. She felt she had already caused him enough stress, especially now that her brother Song was also adding to Kim Yong's burdens. She assured him not to worry, she would handle everything. Suddenly, Kim Yong asked her if she liked Ji-woo, the brother of his boss. Jung Hee was stunned, taking a few minutes to process the question. Eventually, she asked Kim Yong what kind of question he was asking. Kim Yong insisted she answer with just a yes or no. Jung Hee remained silent, then turned her face away, looking down. Kim Yong interpreted this silence as a yes and became frustrated and angry. He got up, walked away, and left. Jung Hee still did not realize that Kim Yong had strong feelings for her. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Ye-ji is out to dinner with her mom, waiting for the person her mother wanted her to meet. A guy suddenly enters, and it turns out he is the person Ye-ji's mother wanted her to meet. Her mother's intention was for them to meet and eventually get married, as the guy is the son of a very rich and successful company owner. However, the moment Ye-ji learns of her mother's plan for them to meet for marriage, she immediately rejects the idea. She stands up and starts to leave, as her heart belongs only to Ji-woo. Her mother runs after her, trying to stop her, but Ye-ji doesn't stop. Instead, she asks her mother why she can't understand that she loves Ji-woo and only Ji-woo. Her mother is least interested in listening to her, and instead gives her the reality check that she could never end up with Ji-woo. Ye-ji is disheartened by the way her mother thinks, and encouraged her to stop blaming Ji-woo for Min-jo's death. She lets her know that everyone in the office has been bad-mouthing her, saying that he was cheating on her father, and that is what caused his death. Stunned and embarrassed to hear this from her own daughter, Ye-ji's mother slaps Ye-ji straight across the cheek, trying to put back together last of her dignity. Ye-ji storms away from her unbearable mother. It's nighttime now, and Jung Hee decides to stay in a hotel for the night. However, she remembers that he does not have cash anymore, and so decides against it. Her last option is to stay with Ji-woo, and so that is where she goes. The lights are mostly turned off in the house, and so she takes advantage of this and tried to secretly take shelter in the storage room. That is when she hears Ji-woo coming her way and quickly hides into a corner. However, Ji-woo does not spot her hiding and instead seems to be in a rush as he runs out of the house. Unbeknownst to Jung Hee, Ji-woo was headed to the bar. He had gotten a call from the bartender letting him know that Ye-ji was passed out like a light over there, and so he goes over there to get her back to safety. Ye-ji is happy to see that he cared enough to come get here, even in her drunk demeanor. However, instead of following him, she goes out of the bar on her own and leaves Ji-woo no choice but to follow her instead. Out in public, Ye-ji forces Ji-woo to date her by claiming that even though he has no feeling for her, she considers him everything to her. She refuses to let him take care of her unless he accepts that they are dating now, to which Ji-woo does not reply at all. However, seeing Ye-ji stumble and fall attracts the attention of passerby men, and they come to Ye-ji with bad intentions. Seeing this, Ji-woo rushes to her side and sends those men away. Ye-ji is happy that he cares enough about her and hugs him out of nowhere, claiming that they are dating now as he had come to take of her again. Ji-woo has no option but to remain silent, because Ye-ji was not only making sense, but there was no point in arguing with this stubborn girl. As he leaves to get the car, Ye-ji recalls earlier days when after Min-jo's passing, the children at school were bad-mouthing Ji-woo for being a murderer. Only Ye-ji had been the one to defend him and had instead gotten in trouble for that. She had made the children angry and they wanted to beat her up. However, before they could even touch her, Ji-woo had come to save her. She remembers him as always coming to her, saving Ji-woo drops her home like a gentleman and makes the commute back to his own home. In a twisted turn of events, Ye-ji admires the mugs they have made together and feels a sense of possessiveness over Ji-woo. Ji-woo also wonders about Ye-ji on the car ride back home, worrying for the state she has put herself in. At the same time, Jung Hee was admiring the musical tickets and thinking of Ji-woo, especially worrying about how she would ask him out to watch the musical show with her. Poor Kim Young was also at home thinking about Jung Hee. He had noticed how quiet the house had gotten since she had left, and loneliness seemed to be eating up at him recently. He wishes he could somehow tell her how much he was missing her. All this reminiscing got him thinking about the time Jung Hee showed up at his house, a crying mess as she had stolen money from her mother and ran away. He had eased her guilt and put her mind to rest by giving her a new aim, to earn double the amount she stole and give it to her mother. To cheer her up, he had also gotten her macaroons from a nearby store, hoping to encourage her to peruse her dreams of going to Paris. That is when he had become her companion, and she had decided to stay with him. Back in the present day, he also keeps wondering how to present the musical tickets to Jung Hee and ask her to go with him, his nervousness brought on by his feelings for her.